Welcome to your awakening. Please take all as your reality is adjusted.
Wah! Hello folks, hopefully you can hear me okay. Apologies if the volume was up or down, spiking, trying to manage volume differences, yes, anyway, fiddling with buttons. Hello, yes, welcome. Rah! Yes, it might be a bit quiet with this microphone. Yes, a bit of, what should we call it, high octane energy for you. That was Mind War from Sepultura. Yes, seemed appropriate to me to pick something out from Latin America. And, I looked at different things, feeling a little bit folksy. I was looking at some of the more traditional music stuff, and I thought, no, some energy. Dig out some classic Sepultura, put that out there. Yes, definitely. Mind War, highly appropriate at the moment, I think. And just to throw another ball of energy into that mass of synchronicities that I've been seeing at the moment. Yeah, I'll get to that in a minute. Anyway, hello, yes, welcome to Virtual Shamanizing with me, the Hairy Cookie Monster. I'm not a shaman, but I am hairy. There you go, whatever. Hello to all you lot in the chat room. I hope you're well, and if you're not, I hope you're getting better. Usual suspects, a few extras. Hello. Good to see you there. Yes, I've got quite a few links to throw at you today. Today is the 7th of March 2013. Yes, and not today, but I do believe it was the 5th that they announced it. R.I.P., rest in peace, or rage in peace, to Hugo Chavez. Can we say cancer ray gun? We could, but we might have to put the tinfoil hat on if we go and look at things like that. Oh dear. Do they have a weaponised way of inducing cancer into others? Would they bother to spend 11 years trying to cause a coup d'etat via such a slow method? Well, lots of possibilities there, folks. Interesting stuff to look into. But also, of course, the man himself and the whole situation and recent history of Venezuela, etc. Yes, interesting stuff. The geopolitical stage, quite interesting that it happens at the moment. Beware the Ides of March. Yes, that's not today, don't worry. Not trying to throw fear and doom out there, but it's was in my head again, same as last year. Always interesting to watch some of what could be defined as the March madness, but then again that adds into lots of other ways, lots of other threads. The recycle, rebirth, as we approach the period of spring, and the spring equinox, etc. Yes, anyway, beware the Ides of March. What else are we going to see by that time? The Ides of March, by the way, I think it's 15th, as far as I remember. Go and look into it if you want to. Yes, it's a quote from Shakespeare, but the Ides of March themselves go back into historical, factual information. If you want to go and look at that kind of stuff to do with the Julian calendar and all that kind of thing, go and look it up for yourself if you're interested. But it is also interesting to note how a lot of geopolitical effects do seem to happen in the month of March. Like I say, is it something to do with March Madness? Is it that energy, that rising energy of the spring rebirth that causes things to happen, that pushes the cycles of change to make bigger effects that we can actually see them emanating? Anyway, yes, before I go wandering off, rambling about stuff, I'm not going to go into the whole Hugo Chavez stuff. There's plenty of channels out there, plenty of news articles both the mainstream media and the alternative independent media has descended on this news event like the shoal of ravenous piranha that they are. And, you've got all kinds of angles of propaganda and speculation and conspiracy theories and backs and forwards. Yes, go and look into it for yourself. There's a whole massive bucket full of worms there for you to sift through if you want to. But yeah, for myself, from my perspective, he was one of those examples of at least an attempt to be doing something that is outside of the imperial norm that is the backbone of the global octopus. Let's put it that way. He was a thorn in the side of the global octopus, and I do agree. I think I was listening to Corbett Report the other day, and he was talking about how the cliche of the enemy of my enemy is my friend is a bit of almost an oxymoron, because there's so much I could disagree with. It's similar to Gaddafi. The guy wasn't a nice guy, but at least he was making some headway towards creating some kind of alternative to this Borg that is being enforced upon us, upon the globe. Yes, anyway, ranting off in that direction again, getting ahead of myself. Hello and welcome. I hope you're having a nice day today. It has been an interesting week. Yes, various news stories, but I want to pick on a couple of common threads. The first thing I'll do is rehash, hopefully for the final time, and I'll get over this and move on from it. But I just can't help but have to put it out there to mention it. In recent shows, episodes, last couple of weeks, I think I've sort of mentioned stuff about synchronicities, and I'm seeing things that like, hang on a minute, what's going on here? That looks, almost identical to what I've just said. Almost as if somebody is transcribing what I've just said and then just shuffling the words around a bit to make it present it in a different fashion. I'm sure any of you students out there who might have, had to sit through writing very long-winded essays, you know the kind of thing I'm talking about, where all they're asking you for is to regurgitate the information that they've given you via whatever particular course material or book or whatever that you're doing on that course, and they just want you to regurgitate it in different words just to show that you've put it in the memory banks, that their teach by rote has actually inserted their chosen factoid into your brain matter, such that you can, like the rat pressing the button for its food pellet, you can regurgitate it when asked. You don't necessarily need to understand it. Understanding is not required. Or comprehension, I should say, for you legal trapeze artists. Yes, anyway. You know the kind of thing I mean. Shuffle words around here, get your old thesaurus out and pick a word that means exactly the same thing, but it's a different word. If anything, it's good practice in that trivium sense, because it can improve your own grammar and rhetoric. But I do hope, and this for me has been one of those big branches that I often shake, it's that being able to apply your own critical thought, so you do actually comprehend what is meant or what is contained within the factoid or concept or whatever it is you're being asked to repeat. Don't just repeat it, actually digest it and try to comprehend it and how it fits in to the rest of the tapestry. So yes, doing that kind of thing can actually be somewhat beneficial, because it'll improve your library of words. And one of the chains that is on our minds, our spirits, is that doublespeak dictionary, the control of language. If you've missed that very large thread or tunnel in those rabbit warren of tunnels, I suggest you go and spend a bit of time looking at that. that manipulation of language, and 2 + 2 = 5. By controlling what information you have access to, they control the modality of your thoughts. So you can only comprehend within the things that they have already shown you. Yeah, I think you get the kind of idea. Yes, I'm running off down tunnels again already. I keep doing this. It's very fractal this evening, I'm afraid, folks. But don't worry. I've got quite a few links I'm going to throw at you soon enough. But in those synchronicities, as I was trying to get across over the last few weeks, I am honestly trying not to be fall for the traps of egotism, of wanting to claim something or put some kind of intellectual property stamp on it or whatever. What I'm primarily concerned about or interested in is the fact that, I'm sorry, but no matter the amount of voices I hear saying, oh, there's disunity, oh, there's argument, oh, there's division, I'm seeing more and more again and again the same core tenets of things that are being approached from different directions. If you've listened to me for a bit or read before, you're probably aware of the fact that I try to look at a variance of information. Yes, I've got my own biases, of course I have. We all have our own subjective interaction, but I try and be balanced in the directions that I get my information from. So I look at left and right and black and white and religious and atheistic, and pick a polarity, pick a duality. Yeah, I try and balance it out a little bit from spiritual to academic or whatever. But I keep seeing similar or the same concepts, core tenets, core principles, core attitudes, core perspectives, however you want to define it. I keep seeing more and more, even though people may approach them from different pathways, from different angles, from different interpretations, they're basically talking about the same things. And there's more and more of it going on. And as I was trying to allude to last week, he's like, please just pick your particular tribe. There's a tribe to suit everyone. There's a colour to suit everyone, even down to if you want to be purely, totally independent, a minority of one, then that's your particular tribe. Just get on with it. Stop concentrating on the divisions or alluding to there being divisions, and look at the similarities. In a objective, balanced point of view, as I did, I recently uploaded last week's show to my YouTube channel because I needed to put it in like a time-stamp fashion to lodge it, to record it. See, I don't like doing a lot of recording in that sense. Sort of tried to get this across before. To me, it's more bardic communication of knowledge and perspectives, etc., rather than here is a book of stuff that somebody read or wrote down once, however many years ago. To me, it makes it more part of the natural cycle of things. But anyway, yes, another divergent path. What I was trying to allude to was the fact of, by passing these things on, we empower them, and in empowering them, we are disempowering the divisions or the supposed divisions. When I see more and more, as I say, more and more people just basically repeating the same things, and this, yes, something I will come back to. As I say, trying to be objective, repeating the same things, because we don't want to be just repeaters. But more and more people, as far as I'm concerned, are in one way or another, either tacitly or vicariously, they are agreeing with certain tenets. They are enacting certain tenets and principles for themselves. Whether they're highly active or not active or whatever, doesn't matter. I'm looking at the whatever it is that they're putting out there. That's their bit of activity that I'm seeing and interacting with. And being objective, yes, as I put it in that timestamp, part of that was to say, as I say, put it out there. So it's like, am I just being biased here, folks, because I look at this particular kind of material, so therefore I, by willingness, by wanting to believe, I see or hear what suits me, makes me feel happy, rubs my happiness nodule, put it that way, yes. So in that sense, is it confirmation bias by putting it out there? You know, if people listen to that, or if you listened to me last week, if me saying synchronicities and similarities and stuff like that to you makes no sense, or you can't see it, or you know, whatever, what is it this guy is talking about, I got no idea, don't worry about it, because if you're not seeing it, then it's not there for you, if that makes sense. Yeah, I'm trying to stand back from this and go, I see that, but I know I could be biased. So in an almost academic, experimental fashion, I leave it there to be digested by other people. If you do see these similarities, then it might come as no surprise to you, because you're probably seeing the same thing as well anyway. That's something else that I get this strong impression of. It's almost as if, and I don't want this to become an elitist perspective. Please don't allow yourself to get dragged off into that us and them elitism type, clique type stuff. But it is almost like you've all gathered to this one point. As I was talking about last week, the crowd of people, or you know, the messages that get passed around the crowd, etc. The crowd of people have all turned up at this one point, and they're not really saying anything to each other. You just get that sort of look and a nod, as if to say, "Yep, I'm here. Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, okay." And it's not that they're actively, necessarily, directly punching in one direction, but they all know they stood in the right place at the right time for the right reasons, and they're there. They're just waiting for everybody else to catch on, if that makes sense. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. Like I say, if you see these similarities that I see, can I show you what I see? Yeah, that's when telepathy happens. Yeah, let's wait and see. But yeah, if you can't see anything, don't worry about it. If you do see anything, just keep it on hand, as it were, as a little side note to then see if you see it elsewhere, etc., etc. And maybe that helps a little bit, in the sense of, this was what I was trying to point out before. A lot of the time we hear that constant argument of, there's so much division, we can't do anything because we're not united, we all have to unite, we have to have one single movement under one banner, under one world rule. Hang on a minute, isn't that what we don't want? Didn't we just say, or isn't a lot of the previous year's argument and protest and rhetoric and activism and everything else supposed to be about stopping this one world thing in its tracks? So hang on, how can we all be united? Because if we're all united, then it would be one world. Paradox. But the reason, yes, tripping over that deliberately, the reason that I'm trying to point this out is, I know I have myself over the years, and I may very well have done it, recently, etc. Confirmation bias. But this is all part of the process, folks. Are we allowing ourselves to play a game that the organ grinder has trained the monkey to dance to quite well, because he's been doing it for quite a long time? The peasants are getting a bit uppity. Well, I'll tell you what, send your one agent to that side, the left side of the crowd, and send your other agent to the right side of the crowd, and get them to shout opposing things at each other and say that we all need to unite as one under their banner, and we'll let, there you go, carry on. That'll keep them occupied, that'll divert that energy, that will sap that energy. Like those little imps grabbing you, pulling you down to their level, to where they want you to be. Yes. So anyway, synchronicity thing. In the end, I sent a message to one of the guys and said, "Hang on a minute. Have you been listening to my show recently? The kind of things you're saying, it sounded like you were replying to stuff that I said recently. He replied back saying, no, sorry, I haven't had the chance to listen to your stuff recently, blah, blah, blah. So, of course, I've got to deal with this by the evidence at hand that I have to me. If he hasn't heard it, then to me the synchronicities of the kind of stuff we were saying, we were both basically saying exactly the same thing with different words. And the synchronicity of that, to me, is quite strong. And it's not just one person. As I say, I picked one person out to ask directly, saying, oh, hang on a minute. But there has been several things, several different channels of info that I follow, whether that be an individual or a group of people putting stuff out there. Same thing to me. So if you see that kind of thing going on, just take mental note of it. Put it in your backpack as a piece of ammunition, as a bit of energy, so that when the usual divisive kind of tactics or arguments come up, you can just reassure yourself that, well, yeah, there may be divisions, but if all we do is worry about the divisions, we won't actually be working on anything that gets rid of the divisions. Yeah, let's concentrate on building walls. So, yes, anyway, as I've often said before, am I just going through this process myself and putting this kind of thing out there as part of my own personal process? I'm just sharing with you what I'm doing. So in that respect, yes, it could be. Hopefully, like I said, we've got past that point of being caught up on the ego side of it, the temptation of that ego side of it. And we can actually be looking more towards solutions. It's a magic buzzword at the moment, folks. Solutions. There we go. Should say it once more for the keyword algorithms. Solutions. Yes. Yeah, before I go running off again, because I've got loads of notes this week. I'll try and get through them as they were originally sort of written down, because that was when, they were making sense to me. As I said before, I prefer to work in this vocal aspect rather than the written word. I find writing stuff down it just doesn't gel for me. I don't work as easily that way. But as I was talking about the other week, trying to be more concise, less rambling. But there we go. In that kind of sense, rambling. Shout out to Adonis. He's put up a vlog the other night saying he's going to start doing vlogs on his YouTube channel to hopefully put a few bucks his way in terms of, I think he's probably using AdSense and all that kind of stuff, as you do with YouTube and Google and whatever. But at least he's putting more stuff out there, and more and more people I could say so many shout-outs to so many different channels and websites and people, individuals. It's getting a bit ridiculous. And it's not really what I want to do with what I'm doing with this. Maybe if I was doing a more generalised radio show, then it could be something to do, a mixture of music and shout-outs to various people, the kind of stuff your classic DJs do. But there you go. I'm not a classic DJ. Sorry, folks, if you expected that kind of thing. You ain't going to get it. You're going to get beady, weirdy, rambling stuff at you. Anyway, yes. So where should we begin? Should we begin with that one? I suppose we should. So that's been sort of in the news. Going to get a fair bit of American-based news, USA-based news. But, this is all part and parcel of the way this system is emanating. This is just the news article that I plucked, which is from Natural News. You can find this news elsewhere on different sites, so if you don't like natural news site for whatever reason, you can go and look it up for yourself somewhere else, whatever. Yes, naturalnews.com. Government arms race kicks into high gear as DHS buys 2,700 armoured vehicles for streets of America. Yeah, this is the news that the DHS has bought, as it says, 2,700 of what you could basically call like street tanks. They're not caterpillar tracked, they're wheeled, they have 4 wheels, big truck-based tanks, basically, armoured personnel carriers. These things are grenade-proof, mine-proof, RPG-proof, I think, as far as I remember. But yes, anyway, look through the article yourself if you want to. But this is just a general note on that news. I'm going to sort of run along this thread, run down this tunnel. It's not so much conspiracy type stuff because it's blatant, it's obvious, it's in your face. This is kind of thing I wanted to approach with this. I've tried to do this recently more often. I might laugh at you a lot this evening, folks, I'm afraid. I just feel that I watched Sam Williams' latest upload, and it's just this clip from the Tory conference, but he'd overdubbed some canned laughter so that while the puppet was spewing his double-speak rhetoric that was just interspersed with laughter. I thought it worked perfectly, so that's what we should do. We should start viewing these politicians as pure comedians, and whenever you hear them talking, just laugh at them. Just laugh in their faces, whatever they say, it's bullshit, so just laugh at them. So yes, I might laugh at you. Apologies if I make the microphone go pop. I don't have a pop shield. Yes, be careful with your speakers. Probably better off listening to this on headphones, really. But then again, it might be like I'm a voice in your head. Ah. Anyway, yes, stop being silly. Yes, trying to talk about serious stuff here. But I am just going to, in a way, just put some various links in front of you that they might be on alternative websites, but they're linking from, or they're passing through, digesting information that is being put out by the mainstream media. This is not denied stuff, this is not conspiracy stuff, this is relating supposedly factual information that has gone through the standard mainstream media channels. You track it back to Reuters or whatever else you want. But yes, along this thread, subject I've talked about before, it just seems to me that, reference that March Madness again, and that acceleration of events and activity that seems to have happened over the past few years. Normalisation of the robot army. That's sort of, call that a title, if you will. If this thing, what it is that I'm doing now, has to have a title, if it has to be packaged as a product in some way, there you go, normalisation of the robot army. These are not the droids you're looking for. Yes. I think before I get into that, we'll leave it at the tank story for now. You can maybe already see how that kind of stuff links in, the militarisation of the police, as they're not legally allowed to have the army do that kind of stuff. Instead, they just turn the police into another army by giving them tanks and billions of rounds of ammunition and fully automatic weapons, and on and on and on the list goes. But yes, anyway, I'm going to play a couple of tunes, about 8 minutes worth. I think they're appropriate. Now we'll be back to rant at you again and ramble a bit. There's nothing wrong with rambling. You just have to keep up. Don't trip over the tree roots, etc. Mind you don't fall in a puddle. But keep up, enjoy the view, enjoy the conversation. I'll be back in a few minutes. Oh, welcome back. Hopefully you can hear me. Yes, bounce, bounce, bounce. Hope you can hear the reggae, blues roots in both those tracks. You may not think they work together. I think they do through that flow. Yes, bounce, bounce. We are living in gangster times, and those gangster times want to take all you time travellers and turn you into Iron Men. You're all time travellers, you know, operating through this three-dimensional experience. By having 3 dimensions, it automatically has a temporal aspect, therefore 4 dimensions. You're already a time traveller. What moment is it now? What moment is it now? Yes, anyway, before I get off into too much silliness, there's some classic Black Sabbath with Iron Man, and the specials with gangsters. Yes, living in gangster times, most definitely. Catch-22. Yeah, mention that again in a bit. If I actually remember, you know, if I don't get distracted and if I stick to my notes. We shall see. Yes, okay, let's throw next link in. Hopefully you can hear me. Just say it loud and clear in the chat room if you will, please, if you are actually listening. Just so I know that I've clicked the correct buttons. Yes, thank you, cool, cheers guys. It's just in case, because you know, sometimes I do fumble. I get finger fail and press the wrong button and disconnect myself or something silly. I know a little bit about technology and the internet and whatever, but I'm not that technologically savvy, so sometimes I do make mistakes, but we just work along with that and carry on. Drop a bum note here and there, just carry on, nobody will notice. Anyway, yes, sorry, back to the important information stuff, the nuggets, the factoids. Yes, this article is from activistpost.com. Well, that's where I found it anyway. I think it might actually have originated elsewhere. Wait for my window to open up. There it is. Yeah, activistpost.com. New SPLC report. Conspiracy-minded anti-government groups reached all-time high in 2012. Yeah, that's the title of the article, folks, if you want to look it up. If you're just listening, you're not seeing the links in the chat room, whatever, so you can go and search for it yourself if you want. I'm not going to go through the article, you know, like I usually do. I just pass the links on, pass the information on, look at it at your leisure if you're interested. But this just goes over a report that came out recently from the Southern Poverty Law Centre. That's the SPLC that's in the title. Sort of noting, maybe not quantifying, but certainly, you know, reporting on the numbers of alternative groups, such as that you're listening to now, you know. Remember, you know, just go and look up what makes you a terrorist now, and look at the very ubiquitous way that they are classifying anyone and everyone as being a terrorist. Therefore, you come under their legal jurisdictions for all these various crap that they've written into the legal system. You know what I'm saying. Yes, you're all terrorists now, folks. And even the Southern Poverty Law Centre has put out a report saying about how the numbers of these groups has grown and grown and grown over 2012. Oh, has it really? Is this what we've been shouting at you for ages? And like I was talking about last week, can we say that this is an emanation of the ever closing in walls, the tightening rope that is being drawn in around the mass of everybody else? More and more people getting pushed to the outer fringes means more and more you will get these kind of groups spring up, because people will just do as they need to do. You know, if they need to form groups to get shit done, that's what they'll do. But yes, anyway, I was ranting about that last week. But Cookie wants to, how does this add into Robot Army? I don't get it. Don't worry, we shall continue forward, and maybe you'll see that tunnel form. Yes, you're all terrorists now, folks. And as I say, if you want to look further into this, if you're worried about the fact that it's on an alternative media website, then the links will be there. Follow the links through, do some searching and researching for yourself. Find out a bit more about the Southern Poverty Law Centre. It's quite an interesting little NGO there, quite influential. It's you could say it's a little bit like Tavistock Institute here in the UK. They like to mess in the mass consciousness, opinion shaping, stuff like that. Lobbying for legal stuff to get done in the government. Well, whatever. Go and look into it for yourself, as I say. Yes, so let's give you another link then. Move this on. How does this add into the robot army? Well, what's that up in the sky? Is it a bird? Is it a plane? Don't drone me, bro. You see how it creeps into the popular culture. It becomes sublimated into the popular culture such that it normalises the acceptance of it. Yes, before I get ahead of myself, come back to this particular article again. I've plucked this off the activistpost.com. Thank you, all the folks there. But yeah, I'm not sure if this appeared elsewhere first and they're just passing it on, as it were. But anyway, title of the article: Under Pressure, Holder adds tentative no to killing citizens on US soil. This is part of an ongoing story at the moment about Eric Holder, isn't it? Eric, I think his first name is. And the question of whether it is legal for the American state system, primarily under the banner of the great Kingo blah blah, to assassinate US citizens on US soil, utilising their new lovely toys of death. The new version, this season's chosen toy that everybody wants for Christmas. That random hot death from above, the lightning of Thor that they can send down on whoever they choose, wherever they choose to do it. Yes. And maybe you might see how that somewhat links together now. The two stories do sort of add into the same thread, because they're making it so that anyone and everyone can be labelled a terrorist, and as soon as you're labelled a terrorist, they are legally allowed to then get rid of you however they choose to, whether that be through incarceration and reprogramming, re-education, or whether that be by use of that hammer of Thor, that lightning strike from above, that was it a bird, was it a plane, oh shit, I'm a pink smear on the pavement. Yes. So, and as I jokingly, sarcastically, sardonically alluded to, don't drone me, bro, already that meme has spread virally across the interwebs, such that, as far as I'm concerned, looking at it from like a sort of, as I try to do, not being elitist, being part and parcel of, but trying to take an objective view of seeing these kind of things going on, like the Harlem Shake meme that is still doing the rounds now, but you get the kind of idea, that pop culture meme way of spreading an idea, perspective, opinion, knee-jerk reaction, emotive, tearjerker, whatever. Yes, don't drone me, bro, is already out there and, rapidly, virally spreading as an attitude. And the reason I point at this, the reason I deliberately point and prod it and say, look, is because that's that normalisation effect happening right before your eyes. If you were studying the bacteria under a microscope, I'd suddenly get that voice from the War of the Worlds soundtrack, studying like a bacteria under a microscope. And there's the point where I don't know, one of the lab techs adds a drop of sugar water into the petri dish to feed the whatever particular bacteria it is, and you see that sudden growth, that viral growth explosion, you see all the sudden spreading of this thing. You're actually seeing it happen before your eyes, ears, mind, perception, etc., etc. Mind wars. One of the talking heads I was watching the other day, I can't remember which one it was, sorry, but he just happened to note the fact of why is it people are arguing over the legality of doing this, whether a blah blah is legally allowed to do it or not. You're missing the point here. They have a new wonderful toy of death that allows them to press a red button and you die. It's as simple as that. That mechanism, no more interference, just kill them, press the button. All this backs and forwards arguing is a simple example of that generated fake polarity that is the divide and conquer. So we don't want them to just turn around and say, hang on a minute, what are you doing with those machines? We don't want them to do that. We just want them to invest their energy to subvert, to steam valve their energy out, arguing over the nitty-gritty, nitpicking legality, semantics, legalese of whether he is or is not allowed to use it, whether Holder said yes or no to the legal question, blah, 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 blah. As I was sort of rambling a little bit about the OPPT the other week, and I questioned that just basic, simple, what I consider to be that simple problem of the monopoly of force, of having a bit of paper with some words written on it doesn't necessarily mean a lot when somebody's pointing a gun in your face. And as it stands in this gangster world that we are currently experiencing, the monopoly of force is most definitely, still on their side, and is one of the main things that they utilise against people. So while you're busy arguing over the semantics and the opinion points of whether he did or didn't, or should or shouldn't, or this, that and the other, they're actually building the infrastructure required. They're getting all the logistics work done, basically, and this has been part of my general rant for at least the last 2 years. That has accelerated that process of them finishing off constructing this thing is very, very near completion. They're very, very nearly complete on needing everything in place to deal with you when you do actually finally snap and go, I ain't taking it anymore, I'm mad as hell, I ain't taking this. When you do actually finally do that, they're ready and waiting. They've got it all in place. They've got all the legal excuses. They've got all the mechanisms, all the logistics in place to process you. Thank you very much, yes. While you've been busy arguing over whether there is or isn't a division, whether there is or isn't unity, whether there is or isn't, the tipping point, this is the event, this is what's going to do it. Rah! While you're busy doing that, they're finishing putting the final bricks in that panopticon. It's in that normalisation of the robot army. Are we far too busy just doing exactly really what I've just spent almost an hour, 58 minutes doing? I am steam valving, I am ranting and raving about how they're doing this stuff and isn't it terrible, and I disagree, but they're doing it. I don't wish to sound doom and gloom and pessimism and all that kind of descending running out of steam effect. I'm just pointing at reality. I'm not particularly keen on Ayn Rand's philosophies or economics, but one of the classic quotes from her, I think is brilliant. It just says it all. you can ignore reality, but you can't ignore the consequences of ignoring reality. At some point, reality will slap you in the face and remind you that it's there and you are there and you're part of reality. Therefore, hello, I'm reality. Yes. Now, to leap, maybe some would say, put the tinfoil hat on, but I've ranted about this for years, and now, like I said, I'm not giving you conspiratorial stuff here, folks. I'm not giving you weird opinion pieces from some backwater blog on the internet that only 50 people have ever read. No, this is just, as I said, you can follow the links through and find this information on mainstream media sites, academically accepted body of works, etc., peer review, blah, 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 blah. You need that reassurance, and these point you towards that reassurance. But let's play the tinfoil hat game and say, oh, this is all just crazy conspiracy theory. You're out of your tree. You're a loony thinking that this is what's going to happen. Oh. Yes, I've been ranting about this for years, but here you go. Over the last several years, we're starting to see the actual physical emanation of this. And I'm not going to tangent off into a transhumanism, singularity, rant, ramble, argument, whatever. I think you can find those tracks, those paths, those threads for yourself if you want to, if that's currently interesting you. But anyway, another link here which I've dropped in the chat room. And this is on a site called extremetech.com. Found this through oh dear, it might have been Maca Electric, I think, the other couple of days ago. But yes, anyway, from one of the various sort of news aggregating channels that I follow, because I follow quite a few of them, so that I don't miss out on a lot of these different interesting bits of snippets and clippets that sneak out in the mainstream or the academic journals and stuff like that you might not necessarily see on the 6 o'clock news, on the 6 o'clock news. Thank you, Junkie Mark. Yes, keep at it. Right. Anyway, yes, before I diverge myself, this article, find it on extremetech.com. Brown University creates first wireless implanted brain-computer interface. Came out on March the 4th. Now, I can remember several years ago IBM announcing that they'd been working away on this technology, and this is just, this particular university pushing towards this kind of stuff as well. And they claim now that they actually have a working, functional prototype set up that does exactly what it says. Wireless interface to the brain. This interface takes the sort of analog data, the brain waves that your brain outputs, and it records them and digitizes them, turns them into a digital medium that can then be interpreted by a computer, etc., etc. So these links into the robot man, into the machine, are starting to emanate into reality. There's reality again. This is, put your tinfoil hat on, have a laugh at yourself in the mirror, go, oh, it can't be real, it's just crazy conspiracy theory. They're doing what? They're actually putting this out on the marketplace? What? Shit? What? Yes, indeed they are. This is no longer the territory of sci-fi dramas or soap operas or whatever. This is now actually happening in reality around you in the world that you are part of. And if you are not partaking in steering that ship, then that ship will be steered by people who want to take it towards stuff like this. If you don't believe me, there's a massive wealth of information that you can look into to point towards the most probable reasonings to why these I don't like to use the word elitist, but these very segregated people want to take things. It goes back hundreds of years into history, and you can see how they've constantly pushed towards this kind of stuff, this kind of control method, this kind of owning of stuff, because as far as they're concerned, they're the only real people in reality, and you're just a useless eater, you're just in the way, you're just breathing their air. That's how most of these people think. And as I say, completely separate topic with an absolute wealth of information that you can look at if you want to, if you don't want to believe me. Use the word believe carefully. Passing on a perspective, whether you choose to believe in it or not, that's up to you. I feel that I've seen more than enough to convince me that that's the kind of stuff that goes through their heads, that's the kind of stuff that they're working towards, etc., etc. Anyway, the robot man. Are we seeing that normalisation? As I say, things like "don't drone me, bro," stuff like that, just becoming part and parcel of accepted culture. The up and coming generations, I think the teenage generation at the moment, they're sort of just getting to grips with the idea that shit, and Minority Report was actually pretty spot on, even though it was a crazy Scientologist movie. Can we say pre-programming? Can we? But look at the world around us at the moment and what's going on, and that seems what they're rapidly building. And then the younger generation, the youngest generation, the newest to this world, are literally growing up inside that little bubble. The gadget interface is just a stopgap to this kind of technology where you will have Google to the brain, and that youngest generation are being indoctrinated to see that as being perfectly normal and acceptable and okay for them to do. When the commercial companies start saying that they're going to put this out, when you get the latest Apple iBrain, when they bring out the Apple iBrain, people will be literally climbing over each other to be the first through the door of the shop to buy it and have it implanted. This is that lure of ultimate power, that temptation. Bite the apple. I mean, I plucked apple, all these connotations. I plucked apple out as a particular word company to use as an example because it so perfectly fits that mould, their modus operandi, their ethos, the way they treat their customers, blah 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 blah. Lots of stuff I've ranted about before. The terrible nature of the consumerist mega corporations. Oh yes, anyway, before I shoot off in another direction. Now this is, again, as I usually do, these threads may sometimes be loose, tenuous, but they're there, it's all interlinked in one way or another. I'll give you another link, we'll sort of take a slight circle back round to armoured personnel carriers again. This was a story out on the BBC. Yes, the BBC folks say it's got to be true. If the BBC says it, it must be absolute. Oh, hail the BBC. Oh, Wallet watch. So I just had to do 200 million Hail Marys. And yes, this came out yesterday, 6th of March, BBC.co.uk news. UK to send armoured vehicles to Syrian opposition. The mini demon, the Mekon, that is known as William Hague, says the Cabinet is in no doubt that this is necessary. Yes, of course they are, because they are free to think exactly what you tell them to think. Just like you think the rest of the population is dumb enough to believe the same as well. To help save lives. Yes, we're going to bomb you to freedom. As I say, this just sort of links back to the armoured personnel carrier thing. We need to free them by killing them, etc., etc. Do we have drones over there? You can bet your life we do. And people living over there bet their lives every day. Because our drones are over there. Because this imperialist beast has decided that it needs to be over there. For lots and lots of reasons that, we could rant about for hours. But yes, they are over there, they are stomping around, and we're going to help them do it. Our Chaos Army, hired mercenary Chaos Army, is having their shit kicked out of it, so we need to give them some better equipment, some better military equipment, so that they can get on with that job that we sent them over there to do, that they're not failing at. Honest, no folks, don't think about the fact that we're doing this because they're failing. No, don't worry about that. Yes. Support the flag, all hail the great Mekon that is William H. Yes, I'm getting into real silliness now, aren't I? Sorry. Like I said, just so much of this stuff now just makes me want to laugh, listen to them, and I just want to laugh in their face. You're having a giraffe in you, mate. Yes, yeah, but they still think, the majority of people believe it. This is something I'll get to in a bit, but I'll finish up this sort of segment. I'll give a shout out to Kip1883. I saw some other folks clicked on this, and I caught up with it because I hadn't seen this when it came out on the news originally in the Telegraph. This on the telegraph.co. Yes, I think he pronounces it Kip, doesn't it? It's CIP1883 is his channel on YouTube. It was a good rant over this particular news article. But yes, there you go. The telegraph.co.uk, secret courts bill expected to be passed. I'm wondering if there's been any update on this since. I haven't heard anything yet because this article came out 4th of March. But I think one way or the other, it's a foregone conclusion anyway. Even if it doesn't get through this time, they'll just shuffle the words around and push it through again. And it's it's part and parcel of the current script, and it will go through because they require it to go through, and it's their judicial system. So their judicial system will eventually, one way or the other, reflect what they want it to reflect. So, yes, fairly simplistic article, just talking about the fact of they're trying to legally put into place the ability to use secret courts or to move a case into a secret court if they judge that the contents of the information talked about as part of the case, the evidence, etc., stuff like that, is a threat to national security. Good old excuses. Oh, we can't tell you that because then we'd have to kill you. I can't tell you the secret of life because I'd have to kill you. So yeah, it's not exactly a super in-depth article. It's just simply passing across that information that this is happening now in the current UK legislation, and it's going mostly unmentioned via the mainstream media because they don't want the public to know about it. They don't want you to worry about it. Keep your cosy consumer hat on. Make sure you got your lottery ticket and you're tuning in for, what is it at the moment? Is it Skating with the Stars or some other drivel? I try to not be too judgmental. If people want that for entertainment, I woe for the fact that that's what we consider to be valuable. But there you go. Anyway, it's not diverging to that rant. How does that link into the robot army again? As I say, you look for those intertwining, those intersecting threads, where by having the legal ability to do this kind of stuff out of sight, it's the same thing as them being able to press a button and make you disappear. they're putting it all in place so that even if you speak out, they've got the legal bit of paper that says they can just ignore you and carry on anyway. So in other words, you're just wasting your breath saying anything, because to them it makes no difference. I have a piece of paper. It was got a government stamp on it. Look, it's official. It's a bit of paper. Yes, anyway. Building the panopticon and securing its fences with that virtual army, that drone army, that emanation of that virtual power and control. So much I could stem off into the esoterica of that, but there you go. I'll come back to that in a bit, sort of, in a way. But yes, it is, for me, it's one of those classic topics that I rant about. Links into so much to do with transhumanism, etc., and their attempt to separate you from source, from whatever you consider to be the divine, the creative energy, whatever. Even if you are atheist, materialist, then that means the universe created you, and they are actively trying to separate you from it and put you into a virtual environment, so this affects you as well. You see what I mean about commonalities? People may approach it from different points of view and call it different things. They have their own particular personal pet agendas, or things that they like and would like to see happen in the future or not happen, etc., etc. But deep down at the core of these things, the roots, because we need to look for the roots and strike at the roots, these things have commonalities. They, the them, the powers that be, the elites, the bloodlines, the blah 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 blah, whatever label you choose, they've got their own particular deep core tenets, roots that they stick to. And we have to be more self-aware of the ones that unite us as well. And that's not in a us-them mentality. That's in, as far as I'm concerned, just the mentality of wholeness, of this includes them as well, if they are really genuinely human, if they are actually in that kind of sense the same as us, if they're not some weird extraterrestrial or other dimensional being or whatever. You get the tinfoil hat out for that possibility. But if they are the same as us, then this is like trying to point out yes, I'm getting into real oversimplifications, and I'm trying to be more concise. So what I'm going to do is shut up and play some tunes, and maybe let that robot army dance around in your head for a bit. See what cogitates. Yes, I'm going to play a couple of more upbeat stuff, as I like to do. That's why this is virtual shamanizing, not because I'm a shaman. I don't claim that kind of credit or label or whatever, but music can affect our energy so much, and everything is sound, etc., etc. That's why I like to use music in that way, to transmute, to take the negative, the dark, the angry, the destructive that they constantly throw at you, and transmute it, redirect it. Use it if you can to empower something that is hopefully beneficial, hopefully creative, etc. All those good cliches. Anyway, I should shut up and play some tunes. What's this about? 10 minutes worth. So you got time to go and put the kettle on if you want. Back in a bit. Welcome back. Hopefully you can hear me okay. Sit up again. Not crushing my diaphragm after I was like kicking back listening to those tunes. Classic tunes, yes. Dread Zone, Life, Love and Unity, and Alanis Morissette. Thank you, Alanis Morissette. And the jingle for Adonis and the Finians over at freedominfonetwork.org. I think I might have actually remembered that properly now this time. Well, there you go, you see, repetition, repeating. And yes, the last jingle I played, yes, I've got lots of notes. I'll go back and go through my notes so that hopefully this does actually come together as something concise and to the point. Yes. Have we been revealing the truth? The culprit? Who's to blame? Yes, thank you, Snortle Hands, as he's known on YouTube, for doing that voiceover for that jingle. He did that for free, you see, voluntarist, helping out others, etc., etc. Yes, but as it says in that little sort of verbal clip, looking to find out who are the culprits, basically. Yeah, I'm paraphrasing it, but that's what he's trying to get across, isn't it? Yeah, are we finding out who the culprits are? Are we pointing at the culprits? Well, I felt this sort of needed. I felt like I needed to address this or point to this or something, because it's like I've tried to get across before. I'm more interested in the bigger themes of things going on. It's like, yes, we can go through a big list of actual names and dates and crimes and stuff if you want, and we do often talk about people in particular and events in particular and whatever. But yes, that information is there if you want it, if you need it. But for me, when you start down that path of that realisation, of that widening of your perspective, the great awakening, all that stuff, when you start down that kind of path of questioning what is going on, even if you're just interested in from the conspiracy side of it or from the social justice side of it, whatever, you start down that path. If you take it to quite a depth, you really start digging down into that rabbit hole, then you can't help but encountering at some point, down towards the bottom, you'll get to encounter a very, very large mirror that no matter how you try and approach it, it just keeps mirror in front of you so that you keep seeing your own reflection. And I feel it's that natural process, this for me, as I've gone along my own process, after I've done that, the classic cliche Nietzsche quote of when you stare into the abyss stares back, all that kind of stuff. But you will eventually get to that point of encountering that mirror, and I feel it is just part and parcel of a natural cycle of when you are addressing what you need to address in the introspective, in the internal. I talked before about how I feel it's a bit of a misconception to say you need to eradicate ego. You can't completely eradicate ego. You should be aware of the dangers and the temptations and the traps and all that kind of stuff to do with ego. Yes, it will, if you allow it to, if you let the reins go. It will canter off with you to wherever it wants to be and do what it wants to do, and basically takes you over in that symbiotic, parasitic fashion. And that's a lot of what I talk about, in the sense of who is it to blame, who is the culprits. I'm not trying to divest responsibility from those that have done wrong by using some of what I feel is the misinterpretation and often misappropriated perspective, argument, concept that you don't need to do anything, it was all your fault in the first place, all you need to do is forgive yourself and everything will be okay. Classically used by various cult figures over the millennia, and cult groups and religions. Classically used as a balm, a salve for those people that come to them looking for the truth, because they're supposed to be the ones that know. When you want to know what the truth is, the real deep down truth, not talking about the truth of who won the game last week, the kind of thing I'm trying to say. The real deep down truths, when you need to know, who do you go to? You go to whoever is your particular cultural priesthood, and they're supposed to know, they're supposed to tell you. And there is the usurpation. There is the moment of the middleman interceding, of the parasite interceding, and from thence convincing you that it is you to blame. Yes, you need to introspect. Yes, you need to understand the symbiotic relationship between your inner self and the outer environment that you are part of. But it doesn't mean that all you need to do is say that everything is your fault and then forgive yourself and that's it. Like, it's like, to me, it's like Pontius Pilate washing his hands and using it as a self-justification for what he's just done. No, I'm not trying to avoid pointing at those people that are culprits. For myself, I've got a few chosen names out of history that I'll often rant about, that I'll bare my teeth at whenever anybody mentions their name. Like Tony Blair, Thatcher, Mandelson, certain names in our UK political history and the movers and shakers in the background. When people talk about them, I just go, "Arr, arr," raises my hackles, yes, because they're the kind of people that are responsible for a lot of this stuff. So yes, they are there, and you can find that kind of information if you want it, if you feel the need for it. But at the same time, for me, a lot of what I do and the way I approach this, whatever it is I do, is not really to point at those outside sources, but is to try and nudge people in their own self-realisation. And part of that process is the introspection, is the looking at yourself in the mirror and questioning, why did I just do that? Or why did I just agree to do that? Or why did I allow that to be done in my name? Etc, etc. Because that's what bubbles up the issues that need dealing with, that make you feel unhappy, disenfranchised, uncomfortable, terrified, fearful, all those usual kind of negative stuff that if we all want a good life, you don't want. I'll get into talking about that kind of setup. Yes, anyway, I did mention the Great Awakening as part of that. This is more to do with what I wanted to address, but as I said, that jingle sort of mentions it, and to me it leads into, because when you use a jingle as part of this, it's not exactly radio, it's sort of radio, internet radio, podcast, broadcasting, that kind of stuff, and you use something like a jingle that you do every week, like I have my little intro music that I use at the start, whether consciously intended or not, you are creating a branding effect, a product branding effect onto what it is that's attached to it. So in that Great Awakening that I mentioned, there is, as I've talked about before, that danger, that risk, that those who wish to, for whatever their reasoning, make a buck out of somebody else, have a very good opportunity to step in and go, "Oh, looking for the truth, are you, sir? I know where to find the truth. It's round the back, just down the alleyway, mate. Don't worry. Come on, quick! I've got to do it now, mate. Before the council bloke turns up and says, oh, I ain't got a license. Go on, quick! You want best bargain? Cheap." And they step in. Only fools and horses. Yes, yeah. Only fools and horses. Styly. They will step in and offer you whatever it is that you happen to be looking for. And if you're not sure, they'll suggest a few things that you should have, and they'll then promptly, conveniently, by pure coincidental chance, they happen to have that for sale in their little suitcase, and they'll offer it up to you. Yes, so silliness aside, the Great Awakening, is there a Great Awakening going on? Are more people really looking for the truth, or is this more just a social feedback effect of the austerity, of the economic crisis, of the wars, of the migrant displacements, all this kind of upheaval that's happening at the moment in the world? Is it that, or is it just a call to market the potential in this new environment to create a new marketplace? If you look at this kind of information, if you follow these kind of websites and channels and the different talking points and the different talking heads, etc, And one of the common things you'll see every single time, near enough on every single source that puts it out in this kind of fashion: spread the message, share this on Facebook, Twitter, MySpace, blah, 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 blah. Do our advertising for us, is basically what they're saying. Create the customer base for the rebel consumer. That's meant to be you, the disenfranchised, the unsure, the unhappy, the whatever particular camp you put yourself in, anti-establishment, anti-socialism, whatever. That's your potential marketplace. But you classically see that every time. It's like, share this on so-and-so, spread the message. Now, please do not misinterpret what I'm trying to say here, because I've often argued this point, that one of the main things we can and should be doing is to share the information, to share these concepts and ideas, as well as factual information, etc. Because once they get control of that information and they use the typical Orwellian manipulations of the doublespeak dictionary and the political correctness prison, all that kind of stuff, and they confine people's thoughts by the control of the language that they are allowed to use amongst themselves. So we have to share these ideas. Even if you disagree with the particular idea, it's still there as part of the mix that makes up the whole. There's a lot of things out there that I really disagree with, but I don't spend my time attacking them. I just go elsewhere and do what I feel could be beneficial. If they hold no merit, they'll die off by themselves, as far as I'm concerned. I don't need to do anything to them. But in that fashion, as I say, please don't misinterpret that I'm saying that people shouldn't share the message. You should, but be aware that there are typically those con men, those hustlers and sharks that will try and get you to do this kind of stuff while they get a buck out of it. This as well has partly been inspired by the fact that I've seen the news and stories here and there, the fact that even though the original people who put out the OPP concept and information on their website, they put it out for free, but other websites have taken that information, repeated it, but asked for donations or tried to charge a price for the package of info, like a PDF file and stuff like that. So there are people out there that will do that. That's just unfortunately the reality of the environment we're in at the moment. It will, in fact, probably more than likely get worse in that respect as the economic problems spread and get worse for people. More and more people will be tempted down that path to try and hustle a buck out of the others around them. Unfortunately, that's what will happen. You just have to be aware of that. Try not to be too much of a sucker. It's one thing to want to believe and having that power of faith of wanting to believe. It's another thing to be naive and easily led and manipulated in that kind of way by people such as that. Last week I talked about the inner child. It's a classic lure. That line in the Alanis Morissette song, how about them transparent dangling carrots? It sounds like gibberish when you first hear it, but if you apply it to that kind of concept, those are the transparent. They're transparent to you because you can see what they're doing, and they're dangling carrots in front of you to try and get you to do what they want. Little lures to lead on the little piggies to the slaughterhouse. Anyway, yes, before I digress. So, creating that user base, creating the customer base for the neo-rebel consumer. Being aware of things like multi-level marketing and how, in a parasitic fashion, people can latch onto you and make a buck out of energy that you are investing, because they don't really care about the concept or the principles or your particular charity that you're trying to support or whatever movement it is or whatever it is you're doing. They don't care about that. They just care about the fact that you do, that you have passion and energy for doing it. So therefore, they can make a buck out of that process. They can intercede. But yes, when it comes down to it, you're looking at this kind of stuff, you're looking at that kind of information, this kind of perspective. You can't eat the truth. Unfortunately, you can share this message on, and by sharing it, you create networks, and hopefully through those networks, you can be in a position where you're getting what you need to sustain yourself, etc. The classic for me would be, getting that job where you're doing what you love doing and you get paid for doing it, such that you can then, buy the food you need to eat and pay for somewhere to live and stuff like that. Yeah, brilliant. But there is a catch-22 in that creates an Achilles heel of, you can't put a price on truth, you can't monetize truth, but you can't eat the truth. So how do you survive? And how do you help in that fight of passing on that shared truth, of trying to help others with their self-realisation, and in so doing we're all building a better world for each other and therefore ourselves? Are we managing to transit across successfully over that punji trap that is the monetary machine, the financial tithe demand of the machine of the societies we've ended up being born into? It wasn't your fault, it wasn't my fault that this society, this world is and was the way it was when we first entered it. When we entered it, it was the way it was. You didn't set up that situation, it's just the way it was. And in the way it was at the moment, the way it is, you have to pay the man to be allowed to live in this world. Unless, of course, you want to go and live on the streets and stuff like that, which, yes, you can do if you want to. And the main reason I'm saying this is that there are alternatives, and people have been successful and are being successful with those kind of alternatives. So are we managing to transit that financial trap? Again, it's one of those, I feel, I call them the straw imps. It's not a straw man, it's not just an imp. It's an imp who uses a straw man to try and stop you from progressing on your path. So it's a straw imp, if that therefore makes sense. And those straw imps are the ones that, by utilising some kind of straw man argument, will try and slow you down, drag you down, stop your progression, convince you that there is a division, convince you that you won't succeed, convince you that you are powerless, convince you that you can never change the system because it's just poor little you. All that kind of usual stuff. You can, by your choice, you can vote with your wallet, in effect. You can vote with your time, your attention, how you invest your energy, where you invest it, etc., etc. You can do that to bypass that that potential financial trap. There's lots of people doing it, as I say. There are lots of success stories, and there are lots of innovation and creativity in the way people are doing things. And sometimes I feel it has to be added that it is a straw man imp, a straw imp trap for a lot of the people out there who may not have any other means of income or way of paying the man, of paying for their food, etc., etc., other than operating within this kind of genre, this kind of information, etc. People can make I'll use the term honest living out of doing this stuff without succumbing to the problems of greed and corruption and all the usual bad things that are some of the core tenets of what we rail against, of the system, the machine that is basically using those at its root to consume the rest of the world around it for the benefit of those who are pressing the buttons. So all you need to do is stop feeding it. classic cliche of be the change. There are those out there that are living and leading by example, not leading as being a leader or a guru or a top of the pyramid point of view. They are equal leaders amongst equals. We're all captains now if we choose to be. It's whether you choose to be or not. That's the question. And there's a lot of the reason, as I say, this for me felt like needed to be addressed or talked about. I see a lot of, in the end, what becomes a disabling of people's participation because they, say for example, they put a donation button on their website, and they don't charge people for what they do. They just say, if you appreciate what I've done, please donate if you can. If you can afford to and you want to, that's great, thank you very much. But those people get attacked constantly with this straw man argument of, oh, you're selling the truth, you're selling the truth, you're selling the truth. And when we need more truth tellers, when we need more people in that fight, and I use the word fight in a metaphysical sense, not in a physical destructive sense. It is that dance of polarities, put it that way. We need more people doing that. So I think just be aware of the straw man trap. Everybody's situation is slightly different. For some people, as I say, they may be able to put themselves in a position where they're making an honest living out of it. Take, for example, the Corbett report. From everything I've seen over the years, I really don't think that James Corbett is in any way trying to be manipulating his audience or profiteering from them. He doesn't seem to have any dubious ways of earning a living, let's put it that way. He does his journalistic stuff, and people support that by buying his DVDs and subscribing to his articles on certain websites, stuff like that. You know the way it works in that kind of internet environment. So there are people out there doing that, and just please be aware that we need those people. If you can afford to help them out, then that's part of what you're doing to help the whole thing progress, if that makes sense, to help everybody else progressing who shares that little node of information or that node of common agreement or consensus on certain subjects. You've chosen favourite channels that you follow, stuff like that. If you can afford to do that kind of thing, then we most definitely need more people doing that. Last week I was talking about the Underground Railroad, and afterwards it did make me think I maybe should have been a little bit more specific in saying that I'm not necessarily talking about the movement of people. The most classic example of the Underground Railroad was to help slaves escape and to allow them to move across country so that they could get away from where they once were, etc. But to me, the concept of it is not necessarily just to do with people and the movement of people in that kind of fashion. It's to do with the real world connections of the passing on, the sharing of that information, of those concepts, of those networks where, if you do not have skills or ability in certain areas, somebody else who does. And it's that symbiotic, voluntarist exchange of goods and services. Think of a barter system, in its simplest form. It's that kind of environment that, to me, is the concept of the Underground Railroad. And that, I feel, will grow naturally as more people need it. As I've said before, as the situation, the crises get worse and worse, more and more people will need it, just naturally, because otherwise they won't be able to feed themselves, etc. So more people need it, more people will link into it. As more people link into it, it will expand, etc., 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 exponentially. and by its direction, by the energy that's fed into it, as that vessel grows, more people will jump ship by choice. I often use nautical analogies. It's like, just bear with it, play with it. It's whatever. But I often do. Yes, get over it. Is that that vessel will grow and grow as more people join in with it, and as they do, more people will jump ship by choice. As I've talked about before, the mass of people will start moving when they think it's trendy and fashionable and cool. Unfortunately, because for the mass of people, whatever reasoning, they haven't spent the time, energy or effort to look at the bigger picture, to look at the wider environment of what's going on around them and how they're being used and treated and manipulated and all the bad stuff. They haven't spent the time doing that. So unfortunately, it's when it becomes obvious that the new way is sailing away, that's when they'll go, oh shit, I got a minute, we're on the wrong boat, jump ship quick. But to me, that would be a natural emanation. I can't think of any better words to use to describe that. A natural emanation of what could be called the New World Order. I left it last week saying the New World Order. I'm going to run over time now again, aren't I? See, I shouldn't have made so many notes. Yes, anyway. This is not a Rand Paul 13-hour filibuster. No, so I wouldn't do that, no. 13 hours. Fair play to the guy. Whatever you think of his politics and history, whatever, get on with what I was saying. Yes, to me, it's that perception of the wholeness of that interacting network that, for want of better words, could be called the New World Order. There's something I've tried to point out for a few years, is that in the classic double-speak co-opting manner, they take what would normally be the beneficial, natural, evolving root of something, and they reverse it on itself and lay claim to it by its incantation, i.e. its name, its proper noun. So the New World Order, they converted what I feel would have been the natural progression of us as we moved from a level 0 to a level 1 civilization as the real sort of sources of energy and the use of those sources to live a better symbiotic life with the environment we live within, the Earth, the Gaia, the biosphere, the solar system, blah blah blah. They are trying to keep control of it. It's that classic quote. They can't have free energy because we can't put a meter on it so that we can charge them by the hour, etc. Yes, anyway. That's their version of the New World Order. That's their double-speak reversal of that particular incantation to make you think of that big structure, that big panopticon pyramid where there is no hope but the boot stamping on your face for the rest of eternity. Yeah, I beg to differ. I see a much different New World Order. Anyway, yes, folks, I better, because a couple of bits I want to play before I finish up, so I better shut up and get on to the end of it. Yes, beware the Ides of March. We're rapidly approaching the spring equinox and maybe getting to the end of that doorway that has been the period between the winter and the spring equinox. Maybe it is that doorway that we're passing through. The Great Ascension. Ooh, quick, get me tinfoil hat. Anyway, yes, I'll shut up now. I'll play an audio clip and the usual Bob Marley track at the end. Thank you for listening. Take care, keep talking, keep evolving, keep looking, keep listening. Yes, it is all going on all at once. And you can participate if you choose to. And by your participation, your energy will add into the rising chorus that will steer this ship in a better direction than the one it's currently crashing into. So yes, transmute, transceive and transmute. Take care, folks. Keep evolving. I'll play yeah, shut up, click buttons. Yeah. Take care.